The honor of the Strategic Planning Committee. First announcement, the fire evacuation announcement. In case the room has to be emptied for any reason, there are two doors here on my left. Take an immediate left, take the exit to your right, and go straight out through the double doors to the parking lot. That said, can we have roll call? You see what we got here?
Right here.
You got it here?
Yeah. Mr. Ramble, Saul,
Joyce, Cindy, Greg, Scott, Peter. Your writing's as bad as mine, John. Matt, okay.
What was I supposed to say?
No, you're here. You're here.
He's trying to read down his writing. That's an education.
Sorry about that. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 4th meeting?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Is any discussion? All those in favor by a show of hands? Any opposed?
Not opposed, I'm abstaining.
You weren't here, okay.
Standing here also too.
Okay, good. Moving on to number 5, the high school consolidation construction referendum timeframe, which I think we delegated to Matt and John. Matt, you want to lead us off here?
We handed out to everybody the time schedule that we're looking at between where we stand today, the first action, ultimately ending November 6, 2012 for the referendum vote. This was also partly done by the next subject, our leader through the maze of everything necessary to get us to that referendum through the state, our Pond grants as well. But just kind of going through this, you know, we're working our way up. So we're down at the bottom, January 10th, I believe was the date that the Board of Education did the selection of Enfield High School. The next key date on there, and that was one of the critical path, and I put an asterisk next to all those things that have to happen relatively close to the date we have there to actually get on the schedule to get to the referendum vote. January 27th, we'll be opening the RFQ for architectural services, and that's a general architectural services contract we lay out. So it's not just for this project, but it could be for other projects the town may need to undertake over the next couple of years as part of that. But
Did you get many responses?
it hasn't been opened yet. January 27th.
We don't know how many responses?
We haven't received any yet because it's not due till the 27th.
Oh, it's not due until the 27th.
So, yes, so, also, and now this date is still, I haven't heard back yet if this date is going to work for everybody, but February 2nd, either the 1st or the 2nd, we were contemplating a joint meeting between the Town Council and the Board of Education to bring them up to speed, both sides, all the parties, where we stand with this. Basically, probably going over a lot of this and talking about the need and moving forward, so everybody is well aware of what that time frame will be, because it is, although it seems like a long time, it's not going to be when we get into this. February 20th, what we're recommending is that council at that point, with, again, I think, cooperation with the Board of Education, establish what we're calling a pre-referendum steering committee. You know, as everybody here is familiar with, once the referendum is approved, you know, council does have to establish a building committee. And the thought on this is kind of a steering committee like that building committee that will help guide our staff as well as the architect through the process to keep them on track of what the needs are, and, you know, acting as a feedback mechanism during the different points throughout this process up to the referendum. And you know, that concept would be, again, you know, most likely made up of representatives from the board and the town council, as well as, you know, whether you want to go with teachers, administrators with the school, citizens, you know, members of DPW, you know, however, you know, we kind of lay that out there. February 23rd, we're anticipating that we will have the selection process complete for that architect and be working, hopefully, to give them the go-ahead with that. February 28th, we anticipate that an 8-year estimated enrollment for the facility will be established, and that's something I think that
We're
working on. Yep. Then we move forward to April 15th. We're anticipating that either will have developed or in the process of developing that professional cost estimate for the ED specifications. And then we reach another critical path event on April 30th, where the town council will be authorizing the funding for the local share. And to be honest, I don't know, since I haven't been here for this process, I'm not sure exactly what that entails at this point, but we'll be brought up to speed shortly as we go through that. By May 1st, we anticipate that the education specifications will be completed. May 15th will be another critical path item where the Board of Education will adopt the EDO 49 as well as authorize the grant application and approve the educational specifications. Approximately around June 1st, the town will begin work with the bond council to start looking at what are the necessary resolutions so we can have those in place as we start working with council for some of the next steps. By the end of June, and Art has sent me a number of emails that says that it'll be done long before this.
Yeah.
That's his intent. But I put there as a drop dead date, June 30th, the last day. So that is one of the more critical parts of the critical path. We have to have that in before that date.
And what is filed then is what is the result of May 15th?
Yeah, and any of the other work that's also necessary. But yeah, hopefully it's going to be done again in that time frame or even sooner, but those are kind of the last dates that we think it gives us plenty of time to get those things done. Then July 2nd, which would be the first meeting for council in July, they would vote to schedule a public hearing for the referendum question, which again is another critical path item. And another critical path later in the summer, which would be their first meeting in August, we'd be looking at scheduling, not only having the public hearing that night, but council would be adopting the referendum question. We would then be working between August and September to get all the necessary paperwork to the Secretary of State so we can actually place the question on the ballot. And, you know, the dates of September 1st, August 6th, and July 2nd really are dates that, you know, we have a little bit of extra time built in there, but they're dates that we would like to try to stay as close to as possible. And I don't know if John would like to give any comments on that. He was a key person in putting all these dates together as well.
No, just that we did, as we requested last time, I worked with Matt a little bit, and then we had Art Pongratz available and kind of helped us try and tweak it. And I think, as he's saying, we're looking at those as tentative dates and also just general dates. And there'll be many things in between those that aren't on that list that are needing to be done.
Matt, you alluded to number 6 when you introduced the previous item. Why don't you bring us up to date on that?
Dr. Gallagher and myself met with Art Pongratz, and he had already started a lot of work already, believe it or not. But we did go over some of the key scope items that he would be handling if he chose to take the assignment. He was very accommodating and wanted to help us with this. And so what we are doing right now, actually, my office is preparing a personal services contract for him. He's supposed to be coming in tomorrow. I'll go over it with him. And we're looking at approximately, well, his hourly rate's going to be $75. And we're looking at between when he officially starts, January 27th, to the conclusion, which is June 30th, that we're probably going to be in the range of $4,000 or $5,000 of his time to do that. But, you know, that's, you know, going through, being there for the opening of the architectural services, being the key member, leading the selection committee for that, and doing a lot of the work associated with the education specifications and getting all the paperwork that we need, and also communicating back and forth with the State Department of Education.
Very good. I think that's a key person to have on here. I'm really, really pleased with that.
We are very fortunate, one, to have him available, and two, to actually agree to do this. You know, he has other pressing needs with his family. that
Yes, I know.
He much prefers probably to be with, but we were able to pull him out of his retirement to help us with it.
He's a very indulgent grandfather, and he
Yes.
likes the role.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important that we have someone of Art's caliber.
Yes.
Just driving the paperwork and the internal process. Someone that can focus on it and make sure that we don't miss any of the timelines. And make sure that the paperwork is done correctly and timely and submitted. And so I'm glad that you approached him and got his agreement to be able to work for us.
And he knows and he loves the town. So, I mean, he's
Yeah.
committed to Enfield. I think that's a big thing. Just make a note that Donna and Chuck are here. Welcome. Appreciate it.
Now, the
Good.
cost for Art, eventually that would all be bundled into the cost of the referendum. Would any of his services be part of the reimbursable expenses at the end of the project?
He, in our meeting, he indicated that we need to keep records of everything because it may or may not. It depends, but, obviously, he's going to be working on our behalf to try to get that reimbursement, so.
So, okay.
Very good. So we're up to number 7, a big one, next steps. What are our next steps here?
We go further,
Yeah.
John and I were talking about the demographer's report.
Yep.
So we were all set. We did that. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what's the initial date?
Um,
I mean,
What-
I'm assuming.
what he's asking me is what, on the 8-year study, what would be the first date? And I'm gonna defer to Art on that. I was waiting for Art to be, announced tonight and get away with that. But I assume we're looking at a 2014 or a 2015 date because I would expect them to say the first year of the 8 years, the first year you're in the building. Right? So I would defer to Art and find out from him when we would do that.
Very good. Next steps, folks. I think you've done a good job of getting this together where we're headed here. And
Well, I think, as the timeline suggests, the next, for I think, the elected officials is looking at that February 1st or 2nd date, going through a lot of what we just talked about now, helping them understand, what the cost, is going to look like, getting council on board, because there are some things that we didn't place in here. We're going to have to do some transfer of money to help pay for the architect part of this. And so what we'll do, again, because we want to make sure that we have everything counted for, we'll set up a special, referendum project. Not really a referendum yet, but it'll be the consolidation project, so we can account for all that money. And if there's any possibility of getting reimbursed for that, we'll be able to account for it. So, but that's going to take some action by town council. And so I think that's really the next step, is getting that meeting put together and bringing everybody up. I think some of the other items that I know has been discussed, not only with the strategic planning committee, but also I believe between the mayor and the board chair, is, also starting to reach out to the businesses, reaching out to the public, because again, once council adopts that referendum question, it kind of closes the door on us to develop, the materials. And, I spent a little bit of time today online looking at some of the other communities in Connecticut that, had done referendums, and right now, I think Weathersfield is putting one on for April 24th or somewhere around there. And, they did an extensive amount of, pre-work that will be part of, the materials that will be, able to hand out to the public as part of that from the town. They did a really nice set of videos as well. I was going to bring that down there, but I thought that would take too long, so. I'm thinking that, we need to do a lot of that type of outreach as well. And I think they did 2 community forums. But, those are the type of things that, in between today and getting the council and the Board of Education totally on board with this to that point in July, August, when council lays it out, but I think we need to be working on.
Cindy?
Thank you, Matt, for the timeline and for your detail. The question I have is regarding the delivery of the process. And again, we will have to meet with the Board of Ed and Council as a collective group. But we are not allowed by charter to be for or against any type of referendum. How do we, as Council Board of Ed, deliver the materials to the businesses and to the public in an appropriate fashion?
Well, again, I think a lot of the documentation and information that we develop over the next few months, up to when council adopts the question. Council also adopts the word I'm looking for escapes me, but the information.
Explanatory text.
Explanatory text. You know, we can, you know, what we have at that point can be a part of that. And if you look again at what Weathersfield did, you know, part of their explanatory text was a lot of information. You know, not just the architect's renderings and analysis, but also financial work that was done by the town manager there that explains, you know, what the impact to the residents are going to be by, you know, voting for this. So we can develop that whole packet as part of that explanatory text the council will develop. Now, once that happens, our ability to be pro or con kind of, you know, is gone. And like I believe the Fields referendum, there were, you know, special interest groups that were developed that, you know, then took it on themselves to go out and, you know, try to sell that to the community. And so I think that's another piece that may not be what individuals in this room are going to be doing, but, you know, explore that and help get people interested in doing it during the next several months would be very important.
Greg?
I just want, first of all, everybody's done great work, and Bill and I seem to be going back and forth for our schedules and stuff at the meeting here, but I think Art's a great choice. I mean, there's nobody better. He is the, you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi or whatever of the school district and the buildings.
I'll tell him that.
But, you know, part of this is going to be, and we can't obviously lobby once this process is going. That's where the steering committee and those folks will have to do it. But one thing is, you know, having a good way of having electronic communication. And just a thought here, you know, every time we've done some major reorganization of the elementary schools and stuff, it didn't include, you know, doing any construction or whatever. It was always, you know, a link to our school page. My thinking was that so that this information is clearly easy to attain, is possibly having its own website created for this consolidation. That also possibly has, you know, with our IT, its own Facebook page and different ways of keeping, or even a Twitter account, and what updates can be carried on and stuff, because we are in the world to where people are looking at those three avenues. And my only concern, I don't know if we can do this, my only concern is having it where you go to the, you know, to the school website and click on this link and go here, or go to the town. And because this is a town and school combination, you know, where's the information can be held? Maybe having its own autonomous website for, you know, schools 2014 or something, you know, or, you know, Vision 2014, something. And we use the marketing like we've done everything else, let folks know this is where you get the information about this consolidation. That way it's clearly understood between now and November. Just a thought out there, so.
Just to add in there, you picked up the word vision, that I think we've all been getting emails from folks, very, very good emails, and, you know, asking good questions and stuff like that. But I think they're asking where we're headed, and, you know, the obvious question, if we're going with Enfield High School, what happens to Fermi? If we're doing this, what happens here? And they're asking, is it going to be a forum where we can ask questions and get factual answers? And so looking at this thing, I think the only thing missing, and maybe it can't be on, I don't know, but periodic stages where there are updates, or maybe an opportunity for questions for people, in addition to some of the things you're talking about, Greg.
And one thing that you know, I've been through this because we did close the high school, and then actually back where I came before. And one thing that we did back then is that while we were going through the process, there was a select group of we had city council and board of ed that were assigned to go on a listening tour of the different avenues and hold these things and report back to the boards and councils. So that way, while this is going on here, you're also communicating and getting communicated from the community, because I think that's going to be a big part about passing a referendum. I think everybody I talk to wants a 21st century school. I think everybody I've talked to would love to have a community center, cultural arts, including me. I think there's a lot of positive energy. What would hinder it is if we don't communicate it properly, and we don't get out and start listening and setting up forums to listen and hear and report back to the council and the board of ed while we're going through this. So that's going to be a big part of this. To me, it's we can plan all this plan, we can have Art do all his work, but we got to figure out step up the communication. That's why I thought about an independent zone website. We can call it Vision 214 or whenever, so we can start having that independently looked at, so.
But I think if it isn't scheduled, it won't happen. And
Right.
if we don't put together sound
Right,
bites.
and I agree.
And fact sheets and things like that, I think prepare those things so that they're easily available anywhere, in the library, the schools, town hall, anywhere. So it's out there and people can get the answers to their questions. Yes, Scott?
So I was going to address the same point that both Cindy and Greg talked about. And so within this schedule, from the three of you, where would you recommend that we hold that first public information Q&A session? Because I see multiple
I do too.
throughout the entire process.
Yep.
But, one at the beginning to give the overall, like you mentioned the vision, because we've all been talking about Enfield as one, Fermi as a community center, possibly the expanded library. What do we do with the central library, maybe Child Development Center? What do we do with Stowe when the Public Safety Academy moves out after they build their new building? Could that be senior housing? Could that be used for fallback position for the school system
Right.
if all-day kindergarten is mandated by the state? So, and although we may not cost all of those out, we've talked about at least asking the architects to assist us with some very high-level plans. And that becomes part of the presentation, because I am getting the emails, but there's a lot of, okay, Enfield High, they've selected, I may not like it, but then what are we gonna do with Fermi?
Right. That's exactly it.
And a lot of people are saying, hey, let's move the middle school into Fermi.
Yeah.
And then, well, what do you do with JFK, and what are the cost ramifications of doing that? So if at least we put the vision out there, understanding that this is more than likely a one referendum question. It's on the merger of the high school and the renovation and expansion of Enfield High, because that's going to take a couple years, but then with promises of what will happen down the road. But at least hear out people at the very beginning, and I don't know where it makes sense. And then we've engaged our architects, and I'm sure they're going to be
Right.
running those public meetings as well to elicit feedback on the design and what the community wants within that one high school that meets our needs going forward.
To answer your question, the first one would be February 2nd, our first whatever day we end up.
Ours.
But that's a public meeting, and I think it's one option,
Yep.
one opportunity for people to get some factual, because we're gonna be having some question and answers just among ourselves.
Right.
But then I would periodically put it out there 2 or 3 definite times, and maybe I'm gonna talk about the Greg and Judy show that you guys did last year when you were running around to all the schools, and
It
pretty
was
much.
Judy and Greg's show. We get the ladies.
I apologize. Ladies first, certainly.
But that's the kind.
Well, I think there's probably 3 natural phases where you'd want to build those outreach around, probably early before a lot of work is done, so you can try to collect, from the standpoint of saying, what do you think, if you agree something should be done, what is it that should be done, what are you willing, what is your vision? So you try to get that from the public early on. Then I think, midway between there, after the architect has been able to do some of the work, probably have some broad ideas that, again, would be another good public meeting to draw around, saying this is kind of what we're thinking. And again, get that feedback. And then probably towards the end of the process, in that June timeframe, when I think we should have a lot better understanding of what it is that we're going to be applying for, what that looks like, some of the storyboards that explain and have the good pictures, would probably be the other point. So I can see three phases that you can build those public outreach, but again, even with that, again, working with our businesses, working
Right.
with, the different parent groups, there's a lot more that can be done to try to build the support and understanding, because, again, I think we have to make a very good rationale, not just why we have to do it, but the benefit of doing it. That's, to me, 2 different things. Because, we can say, well, we're gonna save money, that's why we have to do it. But the benefit of doing that really is the improvement in the education and the reinvestment back into it. And to be able to lay out, to understand, what does a better education consist of?
Right.
Because again, we can say we're gonna have a better education system, but what is it? What is the thing that parents that are gonna be sending their kids there for the next 15, 20, 30 years of the life of this building that we're looking at, what is that gonna look like?
It needs to be very, very tangible. Peter?
It might behoove us too, besides just doing the consolidation questioning and getting their opinions of that, to somehow also filter in what would be the town's consensus to do with the other buildings, at the same time. In other words, kill two birds with
The
one
vision
stone.
piece of it, where we're headed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It has to be one big picture, although there's one referendum for one building, that they have to see those pieces that you just outlined. Where are they gonna fit into all this?
And I think one topic the community is going to have with us is going to be with Fermi being the empty building. There's going to be, just so we know, a discourse about should it be the middle school move to Fermi with the athletic fields and stuff they have, and then the middle school be a community. That is a discussion that's already happened. I think we have to encourage that discussion so that we find out from the community, which one they prefer or whatever there too. So, and
You have to look at the financial pieces of it as
and that's
well.
exactly it too.
I mean, there's some real factual issues that
Right.
that work
And that's
into
where
this.
we get folks communicating to us, and then we do a lot of homework and communicate back, just like the board had just completed, and it took a couple of years, the board we were on and stuff, to come up with the firm info high school, which I compliment you making the decision. I thought was great, so.
Chuck?
Yeah, I'd just like to emphasize what Greg just went and said. The thing here is that what we need to do is get out in front of the people and ask them their opinions before we go and make any real decisions here as far as what we're going to be doing with the schools and things like that. We need to go out, and I've heard the same kind of variables that everybody else here has heard, but there might be some ideas out there that nobody here is aware of, and that might end up being what we're going to be doing with it. So I just want to make sure that we get out in front of this, ask for opinions, not necessarily have them ask us what we're going to be doing with the buildings, but ask them what they want us to do.
I agree, Chuck. I think we should put out we should solidify some of the ideas that are already being kicked around as possible alternatives, and then ask, so they know there's been some thinking that's gone into this already. I think some heavy-duty thinking that's gone in.
Yeah.
Yes?
Another question, and it's on the establishment of the pre-referendum steering committee. And I think this is what we spoke about when we met last
Yep.
Friday.
Yep.
But again, if the experts can go into the role of that committee versus this strategic planning committee, and who we talked about getting onto that steering committee itself.
At least in my concept of that steering committee, kind of looking with 50,000-foot level, looking down, saying, here's the broader ideas. We want to do a high school consolidation. That committee is going to be working a lot closer with the staff as well as the architect to bring it about. So I mean, it's kind of taking the general direction of the consolidation and trying to blend all those presentations that were made by the different chairs of the departments within the high school, working with art, and putting together, make sure they're not getting too far off. Now, I think there really needs to be teachers on that. I think there needs to be parents on that. I think there needs to be administrators on that. And, obviously, board and council member liaisons on that, just to make sure that we don't go too far or stray too far in an idea that ultimately isn't what the council or the board of education is looking for. So it's feedback. It's asking hard questions of the architect, asking hard questions of art, and staff to make sure that we're following this time frame that we laid out.
So it's like a 9 or 11 member group made up of the various individuals that
Yeah,
you had
I
spoken
think,
with?
I think it's going to, it's probably going to be very similar in size to what you would lay out for a building committee. And that can be that, upwards of 11 to 15, depending on
So
how
this
you
would be
do it.
developing the educational specs that are referred to in April 15 reference?
I think it's going to be a part of that. It's going to be the feedback mechanism to staff as that gets developed.
My understanding of it was basically they were going to be a sounding board to the architect of what they were expecting him to do in the preliminary designs. And then, once you get through that you're actually deciding, then you switch over to your building committee to follow through with that. So I think we were talking pretty much about the users of the building, which would be the parents. I'd even say some of the students. I think some of the older students might very well.
That's a good point.
Well be in there. So that's what I was under the impression we were doing with that.
I see them taking those, the data that we got here and looking at that, massaging it, seeing things that go together. There are some things I think we all thought maybe needed to be put aside or adjusted or whatever, and getting some of that stuff together so that we had some basic data to hand over to the architectural team. And then, I think it'll come together as they're working. I can see that happening. Just as a question of process, if people are really vested in that, could some or any of those people become part of the final building committee, or it doesn't exclude them from that, right?
No.
For being considered for that?
No.
Okay.
Because it's from the fields, Dan O'Connell, the teacher at Fermi, was the chair
Yep.
of it. And I think building committees tend to then revert to more of the public or residents overseeing the construction. But to have some continuity from one to the next would be great. That's that sounding board saying,
absolutely.
this was our intent. And that helps keep everyone on track, so.
Well, I know Donna has much experience doing that kind of stuff, right?
I think the key to that committee, the steering committee that transitions to the building, I think it's going to be whoever is the chair of that committee to be able to make it really a great functioning body. That's going to be a vitally important person.
Yeah.
And just get people that can meet. I mean, sometimes, 9 or 10 people that have the freedom in their schedules to be able to do this, because we're in a tight time frame. And
Yes.
it really needs to happen pretty quickly.
Now, we're already under a tight time frame to establish that steering committee.
I'm looking at the date.
Because it's
The
February
20th.
20th. So we really have 2 council meetings. So we would need to get something out to the public through our public, our press releases, saying we're forming this committee for, because if it's looking for council to appoint, we'll need applications and from folks. And if it's mainly internal folks, we can use the expertise, the recommendations from within the school system, and maybe you can help shepherd,
Sure.
if we want 2 teachers, 2 administrators, 2 parents, 2 students, something like that, to help find those, and then we'll have some residents that we could help, that we could have as part of our external process.
Scott, could it be
Peter?
something like where you and Peter at a council meeting and a board meeting made general announcements asking?
Yeah, we can do
Because a
that.
lot of people do watch both
Yeah,
broadcasts.
we'll do that. We don't
Come up with
meet-
the same criteria, what
Yeah.
you're looking for, and then
We don't meet for 3 more weeks or 2.5 more weeks, so.
It's a light schedule.
They were front-loaded in the
What
month.
about ETV in the bottom?
Yeah, that's a good
Well, yeah,
place,
there's
too,
a
yeah.
scroll and a slide on ETV and,
Website, yep.
yeah, and then we can help promote it and set some form of deadline, say a week before the 20th, so that people have time to go through. And as we did with the fields, we did a lot of, it was a consultation with the board to say, let's make sure that all those that we appoint, that everyone is in agreement on them. And I'd like to
That's fine.
maintain that, just
So we have to craft something in terms of define the committee, the tasks, the timelines of that committee before we publish it out there, and some kind of an application, in my mind, that would specify the types of experiences, just in my head, that we'd be looking for. Why do you want to do this? What skills do you bring to the
Yeah.
table? Those kinds of things.
Recruit people as well.
I didn't hear.
Cindy
Yeah.
does.
Well, I think everybody, we reach out to people.
We've got we have the process through our website for.
Application?
Applications for
Oh, that's
boards
right.
and commissions, so we just have to add it to the drop-down menu for selecting, and it asks for their biographical information, who they are, where they live, their contact information, but then what's their experience and why they want to serve.
What skills they have
Yeah.
to bring.
But that is the way you seek to get a building committee. Your earlier comments tonight indicated that you wanted to involve some of the faculty that made presentations already, and
Well, this is the pre-referendum steering committee, earlier,
I understand
yeah.
what it is, isn't it? That's
I think
February
the
20th.
pre-steering
With-
committee he's talking about sort of is a mix. I think it's a mix of employees and then people from the community. So I see me going to two people saying, you'll be the administrative appointees to that committee, and that would be the extent of that
Makes
application.
it easy.
That makes it.
Right, exactly.
Fill out this
As far as
application.
the students or the parents, those are the ones that
We
would be
recruit,
using
yeah.
this
Yeah.
form, and then we would be picking from that.
So we have to, I think what we need to do then is determine how many were on the committee, and then we need to determine how many from the public we're going to be seeking. Because if John and them can appoint from inside, we need to know the total amount, and then how many openings there are for the public. That would probably be a decision we can make tonight, so that way at least folks would know that.
How about 2 teachers, 2 administrators, 2 students, 2 parents, a board member, and a liaison, and a council liaison? That's 10 people, that gets it up to that.
You want odd, don't you? You 11?
You would want an odd number. You could go to 3 parents.
Or 3
Yeah.
parents, then.
I would say, yeah.
With your council and board liaisons as non-voting.
They're not voting
liaisons.
anyway.
They're not voting anyways. You go to 3 parents, and then if you want to have somebody, an elementary parent, middle school, high school, cover all the future, something to think about.
Yeah.
Well, one other person that I'd like
Art.
to add on to, Art.
Yeah.
But also, I'm anticipating that we should have our assistant DPW director for facilities hired, and I'd like that person to be on there as well.
Okay.
Because, again, ultimately, that person's going to be responsible for maintaining
Yeah.
it, so to have that individual part of this group would be very,
So
very
it'd be
beneficial.
assistant, would you, assistant DPW?
Yep, director.
Director.
So would those be the 2 appointees from the town, Matt? Art and the DPW
Yeah.
person? Okay.
We have the building.
Now, would that
That would make it
person
12,
be-
I think, right? Or,
Did you have 2 teachers or 2 certified people? Would you?
I put 2 teachers, but it could be 2 certified, it doesn't matter. However you want to do it, but two certified staff, 2 administrators, 2 students, and I'm thinking high school juniors or seniors.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the level that I'd be looking at, if you agree.
Would you consider two kids that have already graduated,
Experienced
just
high
recently
school
graduated?
students.
It's going to get so big, Peter, that they won't
Well,
be.
instead of taking kids
Well,
out
they
of the
would-
high school.
they would be
Kids who've already
community members.
just gone through it within the last 2 or 3 years. You know, that way they'd have the general overall
Yeah, one-on-one.
experience and picture of what we could have done better as opposed to somebody that's still there. Just an idea.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And as far as teachers, you probably want maybe one from Fermi and one from Enfield.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we shouldn't limit ourselves is, you know, in developing the steering committee, there's nothing to say that we can't have what we call focus groups with those groups you're talking about, you know. We
point.
can have a group of, you know, recently graduated high school students and, you know, ask them the questions that, you know, develop to help try to define, you know, what would make that experience better for them education-wise. So, you know, just because they're not a part of the group, doesn't mean that they're not valuable people to be reaching out to. And I think there's means to do that. We should do that.
I agree.
Like surveys or something, can you say, Tyson?
I would,
Focus
I
groups.
prefer focus
Focus
groups.
groups, yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I hate chasing people down for the
All right.
the surveys, where, you know, if we can get a group of individuals together, it's just a little bit more free-flowing and.
Is that what they did for the superintendent? Was that more of a focus group?
Well, what they do, the superintendent search, we had focus groups,
Okay.
And then we also had a survey for those that could not make it to the focus groups, so, because of whatever schedule, whatever. So-
I just want to keep it in mind, the timeline, we have 20,
Yeah.
it's 1 month away from tomorrow that we have to have this in place. And so, I mean.
Well, that's why I thought it was
Yeah.
important to figure out how many of the public we wanted on it, and that way they can immediately begin to put that out for, people to fill out an application for, because the next couple of weeks, I mean, John can choose, and Matt's already chosen, so basically, that way, even by the 6th, there might be applications coming in, and that would, move things a little faster or whatever, so.
I would just throw a suggestion out that maybe either the 4 of us or some subset of this group put together the task, the charge, the date, the due dates, and some benchmarks along the way that we want them to do, so we get done fairly quickly. And I sense that there's agreement on most of the things that's out there. If I can just run them down, see if we can agree upon here, we can bring it up at another meeting. But I think sooner is better than later. So we were talking about 2 certified staff, teachers, department chairs, whatever. That's what I'm looking at that. I think Peter's right. Fermi, Enfield, balance that out if we can. 2 administrators, 2 students. And I'm saying in-house students, not only because we need to meet on a regular basis. I just know, a student I was using had to get back and forth to his job, studying in college and stuff. They just weren't available at the time, so I just don't know how much time we have to do that. I think ideally it's a good idea.
Board has.
Well, but you could use, I mean, of your 3 residents
yes.
that are on it, you don't necessarily have to say parents.
Okay.
I mean, it could be 3
That's a good
residents,
point.
and
Yep.
we might be able to secure a recent grad that's.
I was thinking like either the valedictorians or salutatorians, say over the past 3 years, pick a couple of them.
It's a great idea, but if they're out of
probably in
college.
college.
Well, I mean, you find out where they are.
Yeah.
If
So-
possible. If
Yeah,
you can't do it, you
yeah.
can't do it.
No.
Then you
How many total? to
The leaders are there
compromise
already.
this group?
We might
11 or
actually
13 or
need somebody who's
15 or-
maybe 24 or 25.
Well, I think
that's
2,
just
4,
not
6,
11
9.
plus a rep from the
Move
board
back
and
to
the
10.
council,
Right,
yeah,
13.
to keep it an odd
yeah,
number.
yeah.
Okay.
Sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can start advertising really for the, now we're the parent resident person. The high schools could do their own search for the.
It's the
John, you get that
residents,
out
that's
to
the one.
The one resident's be the
Yep.
one that we'd be looking for.
Yeah.
The other question I have is that, is how to go about appointing the chair of that, and then, and should that chair be a resident, so it's somebody, just thoughts, so.
Yeah, and I think there's, I mean, Karen, did the solid waste committee, did council appoint a chair to that? Or did they elect their own?
No, I think they did their own chair.
I think they elect
Yeah,
their
they
own.
did their own chair.
Usually the group will
Building
pick
committees
their
always
own.
appoint their own.
Okay.
Yeah, they pick their own.
Yeah.
They're comfortable.
Given our short time frame, I would prefer to see them pick their own,
Yeah.
their own chair. Some people may sign up for the not wanting that responsibility as well, Okay. Do you folks want to kick around, do you want to do the 4 of us, and kick around a timeframe, a task?
Yeah, I
A
think
committee task? Or
John and
you?
I can maybe put together
Sounds great.
some work, and we can get it out to both of you, and we can.
That'd be
if we
great.
need to meet, we need to meet.
That's fine. I think we can do a lot of it on email. I'm
Yeah.
not seeing this as I'm just pushing because I want to get these things done so we can meet this
Well,
timeline.
I think it would be very beneficial, there's a lot. I think to have this scoped out by February 2nd.
I agree.
Actually, to have it all laid out, so when we meet with the council, the Board of Education, here's what we're looking for. Obviously, we can start the recruitment process for those 3 positions long before that, but we'll have everything right there so we can explain it to everybody.
Okay. Then my assumption would be that this steering committee, this strategic planning committee would be meeting at regular intervals, kind of coordinating all this stuff as we go along through this process. Okay.
And you can continue pushing.
Have to push, we have a timeline.
Yeah, you're gonna find,
If we don't push, Art will push us, so that's okay. It's gonna happen one way or the other. Is there anything that we haven't dealt with? We haven't solidified that February 1st or 2nd date. John, you and I were talking about which one worked better. I forget which one it was. Was it
The
Tuesday was the first?
The first worked better for the board members who were there the other night. I haven't asked any, I don't think the other board members even know about the date yet. So it would be in their packet for tomorrow, going home, whether they want the first or the second. But one's a Tuesday and one's a Wednesday. The Tuesday was the
No.
preference of the group last night. but-
No.
Wednesday's the first,
First.
right?
And then
Thursday's the
Thursday's the
second.
second.
Forgot about the 29th.
There was,
Yeah.
so, all right.
So we're still talking Wednesday, Thursday.
Wednesday, Thursday,
Yeah.
so.
Thought you looked at that last
I
night.
thought we did too. That's why I said Tuesday, Wednesday, but we could have been on the wrong calendar too.
Yeah.
No, it's,
It's,
well,
it's because
I knew it was
the,
Thursday last night, but.
Too confused here right now.
it's because I couldn't make the Tuesday one that I.
The first is Wednesday, and the second is Thursday, you're right.
All right.
Thursday's been our typical day to meet.
Yeah.
Is the first, is that kite? Was that?
Yeah.
That'll be a
that-
kite.
Yeah.
That'll be that night.
Do you need
So
to?
the second?
I'm thinking the second, which would be a normal
Which is
date for
already
us to
here.
meet.
6:30?
6:30 work for people? Is that okay on your, with you folks?
Yeah, well, I know we had
Yeah.
talked at council meeting, those were the two dates.
Yep.
And the mayor had asked that people keep those dates open, so.
You want to lock it in as a second right now?
That's
Yeah.
fine with me. I already actually put it in there.
I did,
I had a
too.
premonition.
Did you send it to me? No,
I had it second, 6:30, so.
I did too, for some reason I hadn't.
Okay.
And that'll be in the council chambers or?
Where do you want it?
Uh,
Can we do it here?
yeah.
Yeah,
so
this would be
I'd
fun.
Probably do it down here would be best.
6:30 here?
But I think it'd also be a good thing maybe to encapsulate a lot of the things that we talked about, the whole vision. Again, not
Yes, yes.
make it, this is what it is, but, addressing all those different points, like, okay, why would we think Fergus would be the best place for these other things? And I think we can put a nice PowerPoint together to explain every element of this, not only the timeframes, but the committees and everything, so.
I agree. Can we also get it on camera so that we get it out to folks? The more we get people involved, and we know that a lot of people watch ETV, and I think that's a great thing, the more they'll be informed, and they'll bring us back the questions and the opinions that we need to hear.
Definitely. And just to let everybody know that in the past, we've been, not only streaming the video live on our website, but we've been putting the tapes, or not tapes, sorry, Walt.
On
Sorry about
YouTube.
that. We're now putting it on YouTube.
I found
Oh,
it
you
on
really?
YouTube,
I didn't
yes.
know that.
Yes.
When I went to watch the commercial from Maya, they had and they had your board ed meeting and the council meeting.
And
We're on YouTube.
both are on YouTube now?
Yeah, so we're putting actually everything on YouTube now, so.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
You just don't want to go viral.
So, but that I think is a more beneficial platform as well, as when we're talking about,
Sure.
using all the different media types. That is very beneficial, we think, in terms of communicating with
Be
residents.
careful Maya doesn't get a scalp.
Yeah, no, it's.
I'm in trouble.
You got an agent already.
Not
I was
an
gonna say,
agent,
an
you mean,
agent.
right?
Trouble.
She's got a future.
Is there anything else on here in terms of next steps that we need to address? It sounds like we've locked in the second as a date. We're gonna try to have if not a firm piece, then a significant draft of this to bring to that committee. You're talking about putting together like a PowerPoint that's gonna outline the vision, outline the factual components of all of these issues with the buildings, the money that's involved and stuff like that, so people know, I think, the variables that went into the decisions that we made. Okay? So that would be the agenda and the date of our next meeting, then, right?
Good.
So we're up to number 9, I think.
Just number 9.
Adjournment.
Adjournment.
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That was easy. I'll move it on that as fast as I can.
Wow.
Thanks for
I like this guy.
putting this together and refining it.
Very good.
Get rid of this one. That's the bad one.
Chuck, you feeling better?
I can't wait to go home.
Thank you for coming.
We adjourned just for you, buddy.
I know.
You're sick and we don't want to get it.
There's a selfish piece there, right?
That's what we said
I already had
next to.
mine for the winter time, I want another one, so.
feel better.
Take it easy. Give it my best.
Gonna
I
try.
gotta do it.